Hello and welcome to Teacher Talk, the podcast for teachers who are lifers but still want to have a life. This is Jared, and as always, I'm joined by my partner, Johanna. Hey, Johanna.
Hi, Jared.
What are we going to talk about today?
Should I become a teacher?
I don't know. Should you?
Well, I did.
Okay.
I mean, I almost didn't.
So this is for people that might be considering it?
Yes. I had an interesting conversation the other day with someone who, the last I talked to them, was all in and going to school to be a teacher, and then now they are not.
So you cured them?
I would like to think it wasn't the conversation with me that changed their mind, but it caused me to realize that it's kind of a turbulent time to choose education, and so maybe we should dive in for when it might be a good fit and when it might not.
Well, let's start with bad fit, sort of. Let's talk about the reasons people think they want to be a teacher, but they're actually wrong.
Okay.
So if I'm trying to imagine why people would want to be a teacher, I imagine maybe the most common is, well, I love kids.
They'll say that, but I think fundamentally it's what they remember about being in school.
So
they enjoyed school.
They themselves are nostalgic for school.
Yes, they enjoyed the role that the teacher or that the coach had, and they want to have that role.
Is that the number one reason?
I think it is. I think either in some way they admired what their teacher was, or they want to be something better than their teacher, but they saw it as a position of power and a position of influence, and the effect that power and influence had on them and their peers for either a positive or a negative, and it causes them to want to become a teacher.
So they're really just dealing with some sort of psychic scar?
No, not necessarily, but most teachers who have been in teaching for a couple of years will talk about the impact education had on them and why they then are going into education.
All right, what are some, but this is not necessarily a bad idea, or is it?
No, it's not. I mean, that's why I went into education.
All right. And that's not necessarily a bad idea?
No. Well, I mean, I went in. I had teachers who were extremely good at their craft and innovative, and I had teachers who were not. But I think it can be a challenge because people think they're going back into time, and whatever you remember school to be, it's not anymore. Beyond the fact that you're...
Both because it's different and because you don't really remember it correctly?
Yes. You know it from the student lens, and you're diving in to the teaching perspective.
All right, so what are some other reasons that people think they want to be a teacher?
I think that's kind of it. Power, influence, and some sort of memory they have about power and influence. People
Good
will
or
say
bad.
things like they love kids, but as you start to ask them more questions, it'll be because of the influence they can have on kids. And I mean, it's...
So I'm taking notes. I'm writing down, don't love kids.
Well, I think that's just, it's like asking a politician why they want to go into politics. We all know there's a fundamental, answer you're supposed to give, but a lot of people love children and don't want to go into teaching. Or there's people who don't quite like children, and actually teaching is a very good fit. So I think you have to look beyond that answer.
But you're saying basically the only motivation that actually gets people to think they want to be or to actually want to be teachers is this dynamic of either positive or negative admiration in a way of what they experienced from their teacher. It's I want to be that either because I want to be like that or because I can do it better than that.
Yes. Maybe I just haven't talked to the right people, but yes.
Well, I'm not trying to challenge you. I'm just trying to get you to establish that's really the reason. There really isn't other reasons.
I think so. I mean, I've never talked to someone who was homeschooled and then became a teacher, so I could be wrong. But I think that has a big part of why people go into education.
A big part or all the part?
I would say like 90%.
What's the other 10% then?
Randomness. There's something about people who like the schedule of teaching. There's something about the element that it might be convenient for people who also want to have their own children. There's an element of like wanting to do societal good. I don't know, it's hard. Most people, there's a reason that we currently are experiencing a teacher shortage. It's like people have to go through a list of criteria for why they shouldn't just pick something else, because that other 10% can be accomplished through other jobs,
right? It's
potentially more effectively.
It's a real thin slice of people that are just in it for rational self-interest that couldn't find something that was better at serving their rational self-interest.
Yes.
I mean, teachers are decently paid. They don't work a ton.
You experience decent pay because of the community that we live in and my luck in landing this particular assignment.
Sure, but let's be fair. On average, that it's decent money compared to what a lot of people are doing.
Not for the education they have and the experience that they have. I mean, if they had put in that amount of education into getting a business degree and they had put that amount of attention into getting a master's or a higher degree in another field, and they had put it in the number of years into a business situation versus an education situation, a lot of times they would be making more money, not less.
They might be, but they might still be in the call center or in the stock room, or they might have just got cut because the company downsized. Like,
that's true.
Total compensation, teachers don't. I'm not saying they shouldn't be paid more, and if we have a teacher shortage, the answer might be to pay more, but it's decent pay with good security and not a ton of like hours that go into it, unless you're
a good
overdoing
teacher.
it.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of good teachers spend enormous amounts of hours. That's not my thing. I think that for teachers to be able to do it for year after year after year, they have to learn to make it a 40-hour-a-week job. But
it's the whole point of your podcast.
I know,
basically,
it's the whole point is that it can be a 40-hour-a-week job.
Because it's an 80-hour-a-week job for a lot of good teachers, and it's a 37-hour-a-week job for bad teachers. And it's your goal is to get the good teachers to figure out how to do it in 40.
Yes. I want to go down the rabbit hole on bad teachers, but I am not going to.
I'm
just gonna say my one line, which
future
is
podcast
if
is
you
bad
knew
teachers.
how hard it was, the day-to-day grind to be a bad teacher, you would realize that they can't do it and they will quit because it is too hard.
Unless they're a coach.
No, the negative results of a classroom where you're a bad teacher is just like overwhelming. I mean, it's like torturous.
Unless you're a coach.
Anyway, okay, so
unless you're telling me my experience, I had the one school in all of the nation that had a bunch of coaches in it that could barely teach.
Well, again, you're going back in time. That's my whole point, is that people go into teaching and they want to go back into. Jared, that was over 20 years ago, what you are describing. I'm not saying it doesn't exist somewhere in the pocket of the world, but education is completely different than what you experienced as a child.
We don't have coaches anymore. We don't have coaches in the classroom.
It's hard to get coaches.
As effectively a sign cure.
And in our particular community, a lot of our coaches are not teachers because it is too much.
That's the better way to do it. Okay, that's good. 2 different skills, 2 different jobs, right?
The coaches that I have worked with who are also teachers, you would never know that they were a coach, and their teaching craft was well honed and very efficient so that they could coach and teach at the same time.
Back in my day.
Oh, Lordy.
Back in my day, it was very clear that the salary for being a classroom teacher was effectively a sign cure for an important coach. and they weren't really expected to do anything except for not have the kids kill each other. It's not every single coach. I had some good teachers that were also coaches, but there were also people that clearly had zero expectations for what they were supposed to accomplish in the classroom because they were an important ball coach.
I will say this. There are
And it was a way to give them salary beyond what the coaching salary was worth. All they had to do was show up and not be obviously drunk.
There are some states that have passed laws that make it very hard for good teachers to find a reason to stay in the classroom. And so what you're going to be left with is challenging. But I would say we're way off topic. Let's get back to
This is why people want to be teachers.
No, we haven't even gotten into it. You're just complaining. Okay.
No, because so I can be a coach. That's a reason. But you're saying it doesn't really work anymore.
No.
So if that's your goal, don't do it, right?
Yeah, don't do it if your goal is to coach.
Okay.
Okay.
It's not off topic.
Okay.
Even though some of the people are going to want to.
Do what?
Because the person I really admired was the coach, right?
Yeah, but I think those people don't go into education as much as they'll go into like volunteering for a softball league or something.
Okay. I guess. Whatever.
It's extremely rare for me to meet someone who went into education so they can coach.
Not so they can coach, but because the teacher that they admired, their power, their influence, the way that the classroom formed an impression on them was a coach.
Okay.
No? I mean, obviously that's going to start happening because you just explained coaches are good teachers now. So, of course, that's what's going to happen. It's not going to be like it used to be because you promised me it wasn't.
Okay. So let's go back to, should I become a teacher?
Yes, so I can coach. No, not so I can coach. Yes, so I can coach. None of those things.
Let's ask a different question, Jared. Do you want to ask a question about why someone should become a teacher?
Well, I'm still on why they think they want to be. I just want to be sure that we've established that 100%.
I feel very confident we've established that 100%.
So 90% of the time, it's what you said. It's because of how they were influenced in their own classroom experience.
Yes.
And then maybe 10, it's a matter of convenience and opportunity.
Sure.
But even that doesn't really make sense.
Right. I mean, it's a job that they know. It can be challenging to want to jump into a job you don't know, whereas people, the job they're most exposed to as a child is that of a teacher.
Sure. All right. So I'm one of those people who thinks I want to. How do I know if I actually want to?
I recommend going back to that teacher because for the most part, a lot of those teachers will still be teaching, or they'll know someone that you can connect to instead of them if they're not in the classroom. But reach out to that teacher and say, can I come observe your classroom? And this time you can look at their classroom as an adult with eyes of wanting to be a teacher.
Adult eyes.
Adult eyes. I mean, if you're wanting to go observe your second grade teacher, and if they're not in the classroom, they will know someone that you should go observe instead. Or if they say, my teaching practice isn't what it used to be, you should go observe blah, blah, blah instead. Because if this teacher had such an influence on you, they will tell you that. They'll
Sure.
just be honest. And which isn't to mean that they're a bad teacher. It's just, if you've been teaching for 30 years, you're doing at this point what works really well, which might not be what is going to be happening in the classroom in 10 years, right? Like if I knew I was retiring in a couple of years, I'm probably not reinventing the wheel. I'm using the wheel that has worked very efficiently.
The old reporter might still type on the typewriter, and everyone puts up with it because they're that's just how they've always done it.
And for them, it works well.
But no one's you're never gonna come in the door and say, "Hey, I'm gonna type my reports on a typewriter. Is that okay?" And they'll be like, no." Like you're gonna be expected to do something else.
Right.
So they're their close to retirement version of how they run things isn't necessarily representative of what you're going to be doing.
If I was close to retirement and someone said, we need you to also create and maintain an online classroom, I'd be like, I'm not sure I can do that effectively. Like, you can hire someone new in a couple of years when I retire to do that, but so anyway, they will know who you should watch, and you can go in and observe, and this time you will not see it through your second grade eyes or through your 14-year-old eyes, but you will see it as someone who's evaluating, is this a daily experience I want to have?
And just to be clear, neither of us are knocking teachers that are near retirement. I'm rapidly becoming like that myself. And we're just saying that what works for you because of all the experience doesn't necessarily represent what a new teacher is going to be like.
Or expected. I mean, a brand new teacher can't just say, no, I'm not making an online classroom. Whereas an older teacher who has 30 plus years of experience in the classroom, like, at that point, they are an extremely successful teacher, because there's no way I just wish you could see the grind of teaching. If you are in your 60s and still teaching, you are an expert in your world. And like, from our kids' perspective, I'd rather have our kids exposed to a teacher who has had 30 years of experience and is an expert than a brand new baby teacher who has a fancy online classroom, because my kids can learn technology elsewhere. But yeah. Again,
my counter examples from my own ancient experience obviously no longer exist.
I will tell you this.
Because I've definitely seen 60 plus teachers whose main skill was avoiding any effort or accountability.
So I know some of the teachers that you reference, and your perception of what they did and the actual truth of what they did are not the same thing.
Because
I've seen them do very inventive things. I've seen their craft evolve. I've observed their classrooms. I'm just suggesting that maybe 16-year-old Jared was a little bit of a douche who had a high and mighty perspective of things that wasn't always accurate.
Yeah, since we call those words, the perspective of things, another word for that is standards.
Anyway, there's going to be so much editing of me taking out grumpy...
Yeah, but remember, a lot of the listeners are like me. Also, we don't use last names.
Oh. My last name is all over this thing.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh. We normally don't.
Remember, you said I am my brand.
Okay. But like a lot of people are listening. You need someone to give a voice to the skepticism.
Got it.
Otherwise, you won't seem sincere.
Yes, but sometimes you don't give a voice to the skepticism so much as you get on a soapbox and then sit in your lawn chair and
that's what the skeptics
say, that's my ball.
That's what the skeptics are doing in their minds.
Oh, okay. All right. So, should I become a teacher?
But we observe the classroom.
Yes.
Or we talked to the teacher that we were really honest with ourselves and said, yeah, it's not just because I love kids. It's because I had an important experience and says, I want to be like that.
Or I want to be the opposite of that.
Or I want to be the opposite of that. And so...
But go observe a classroom.
What if it's the opposite of that? Do you talk to that teacher?
Well, no problem. But hopefully they have... If you reach out to schools and say, I'm interested in being in teaching, is there someone I can come observe? You're going to have to go through a bunch of hoops. Like, you just can't let anyone waltz on in and watch a classroom. But
hoops? So I should probably just go to college for 4 years and pay for all that and decide what my career is going to be so I don't have to jump through any hoops.
But people do. People do. People, yes. Most people just say, well, I know what it is to be in a classroom because I was in a classroom.
Right. Well, in a way, that's the path of least resistance, even though it's like really not super rational. it just makes sense that, like, okay, I'll do what it's expected of me and I can go about my business, even though I'm committing to something that I don't really know what I'm committing to.
Yes, you need to get inside a classroom of someone where you can watch what it is to be a teacher today and then realize that in 7 years, they won't be teaching like that, because what the kids 7 years from now will need will be something different than the kids of today. And then in another 7 years, they'll change again. And that, like, it's not going to be stagnant. But this is what it will look like when you get into it.
Sure, but if you commit to your college degree without doing this, without observing a classroom before you commit to it.
Well, they'll be forced to go into a classroom, but it's generally at the end.
Yeah.
Where it's like, well, I might as
But
well
you're
get
saying
this degree
like
now.
an 18-year-old that's choosing where to go to college,
Yeah.
or a 17 or 18-year-old.
17-year-old, yeah.
Like, what are you deciding this for without looking what it's like?
Yes, or if you have a child who wants to go into teaching, as much as you want to talk them out of it because you as an adult realize the press on what it is to be a teacher and want them to pick something different, your words aren't going to matter as much as a classroom observation, like a genuine classroom observation with someone who is good at their craft.
It's like scared straight for potential teachers, students.
Or not. Let them see it and then trust them to evaluate what they see.
Sure. All right.
Okay.
This is the secret. We're done with the podcast now, right?
No.
No?
Let's talk about why you would want to become a teacher or why you would not want to become a teacher.
We already talked about why.
Why? No, we didn't.
We talked about why you think you want. Now you're going to talk about why you would actually want to become a teacher.
Yeah.
Or maybe why not.
Yeah. What do you think, Jared? From your perspective, watching my world, why should someone pick teaching?
I think maybe the best reason is you are externally motivated in a way that doesn't require validation or specific outcomes. I think if you, like, no one's going to show up and say you win, or pay you more because you did good, or even really necessarily even thank you. But if you can see in your own measured judgment that you're actually improving the ability of little persons to learn and think and grow, I think that's extremely satisfying to some people that are nicer than me. I mean, it sounds trite, but to know that you made a difference because someone learned better because of you is maybe the best reason I can see to do it.
I think okay, so here are some of mine. I love how you got so sappy with that. That's awesome.
It's not very sappy.
I thought you were going to go into things like, because during Christmas, you always have Christmas off and you have the summers off and the pay is like not that terrible if you learn to stick to a budget and are just aware that that's the truth of your salary, and the benefits are great. And if the economy turns, you're still going to have a job, and you have generally good health insurance and good.
I mean, all those things are true, but that's maybe a better reason to keep doing it than it is to decide to do it, because you don't know whether or not you're even going to be able to run a classroom or not. And once you learn that you can, all those things are a reason to maybe keep on trucking. But I wouldn't say that's a reason to want to do it in the first place. It's a specific type of external motivation, I think.
I like teaching because I don't think the one-room schoolhouse will ever really leave the classroom. When I think about your world and how much your boss is in your business, or other people that I know who are in the corporate world, how much their boss is in their business, like in education, for better or for worse, you are kind of alone. like in the day-to-day grind, It is you, and what you make can be awesome or what you make can be horrible, but you're in charge of so much with so little oversight. And
well, that's the dual-edged sword of like one of the main underlying themes of this whole podcast and your whole teaching philosophy is it's classroom management, right? Like, if,
yeah.
like at one level, it's so hard to even just manage a classroom that if you can do it, they can't afford to not just let you do it however it is that you do. Like, they can't just like bring someone else in to and expect classroom management to happen in a different way that they would prefer how you would be micromanaged to do it. So if you can run the classroom, you're that's why you have the freedom to do what you're saying.
If you can run a classroom, then content is a lot easier for kids to learn, and you will get data results that kids are learning in your room. It requires a nuance to get every kid to learn to their maximum potential, but a well-organized run classroom, it's human instinct to learn. Like they will start to learn the curriculum.
And it can't be micromanaged.
No.
Which is why
a principal does not have time to micromanage your classroom for you. And
which is why you have the freedom for micromanagement that you're talking about.
But if you're someone
either you've got it or you don't, and they can't just say, well, do this, and this exactly like we tell you, and it'll work, because it won't.
Yeah. If you're someone that wants constant feedback from your boss, don't go into education. If you're someone that needs constant feedback from your boss, don't go into education. If you're like, I'll talk to people who are business people and they'll be like, well, I have to do a quarterly review. That is every single day in the classroom. Every single day you are presenting to 25 to 30 people. Every single day you are dealing with the adults that come with those people. You are constantly on, and you are constantly on your own. And some people, that sounds like freeing, because there is no little cubicle box that you sit in. When you're teaching, time is your enemy. You never have enough of it. The workday flies by. It doesn't even feel like a workday. Like, that's the biggest problem with teaching, is there's not enough minutes in the day. It will never go slow, ever.
And you're getting constant feedback in the classroom from the kids, though. It's not like approval or validation, though.
I think the same type of person that should go into education is the same type of person that would own their own business. The difference is
entrepreneurial.
Yeah. The teacher doesn't care about making a big pile of money. The teacher will also never be poor, right? Like it's that entrepreneurial spirit minus the need for...
Yeah, but what is it that you're trying to make?
Learning, people, individuals. Like,
yeah, exactly what I said.
Yeah.
Remember when I said exactly what it is
did.
that you wanted, and then you were like, oh, I don't know. But that's exactly what I'm driving at is, yeah, you're an entrepreneur for, like, this growth of humans.
We need a Shark Tank for education.
What?
The United States is like all on board with this Shark Tank, everybody become an entrepreneur
I want a
thing.
Dragon's Den.
But yes, now that we have gotten here, I have finally decided that is the trick. Become a teacher if you have an entrepreneurial spirit, but you don't need what you make to be a pile of money. You need what you make to be a pile of influence. Then teaching is
perfect.
a good
I'm going to write that down. Not money, but influence.
I think a teacher, I would stake a claim, and let's do some research. I think one individual teacher can have more influence than one state politician.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if you do the math.
I think so.
But politicians are not entrepreneurial. It's like the opposite, right?
No, but they theoretically get in it to make a difference.
Well, the goal
right?
is the influence. Yeah, I was thinking
It's
of
the
politics. I was thinking of Frank
influence.
Underwood actually when he said that, because he always is separating how the politicians have power and the people with money wish they had power. So yeah, I mean, there's an overlap there in the influence that is desired. But politicians are the opposite of entrepreneurial. They constantly have to be pleasing others
Well, teachers do too.
without their outcome. I mean, but it's different. I don't know exactly how to say it, but
It is. I mean,
an entrepreneur does what they think is best in a way where what's best aligns with what they think people want. A politician never does what they think is best. They just do what they think people want. And I'm slicing that kind of thin there, but you get what I'm saying?
yep.
Like if everyone actually wanted blue iPhones, but they thought what they really wanted was red iPhones, the politician would be like, here's red iPhones for everyone. Aren't you happy? And the entrepreneur would be like, what you really want is blue. Here's a blue iPhone. And then would figure out a way for them to get over the hump and realize that's what they really wanted all along. Right?
Sure.
An entrepreneur is creative, I guess, in a way that a politician isn't.
Yes. Yeah. Sure.
And is independent in a way that a politician isn't. You're still accountable to this like constant direct feedback of customers or students or voters or whatever. But there's a key difference, I think. It doesn't matter. This is a side tangent, but this is great. Entrepreneurial spirit, but you don't want a bunch of money. You want a bunch of influence.
Yes.
I love it. I think we got everything we need. Is there more?
No. I think in another podcast though we should go in and how to find that right teacher job, because I think I got very lucky and happened to land in the teaching job I needed to be happy and to be good at my job. But I think it is hard for young or new teachers to not just take anything that's offered to them and know when it's best to not take a teaching job.
Sure.
Because if you're a brand new baby teacher,
You'll be desperate.
even if you're 35 and you're a brand new baby teacher, you cannot save anything because it will be too hard to save yourself. Like, your first years are about learning to swim. Learning to teach is too hard. You need ideal, fertile soil for you to be able to survive. And you need to know how to find that and pick it out. Because it's not what you think it is. It's not the richest school. It's not the best school. There's like secret little keys you need to look for.
Well, that's a good teaser for an upcoming episode.
Yeah?
But for now, let's recap this one.
Recap it, Jared.
I have to be careful not to recap the stuff that you're probably going to cut out anyway.
If you recap it, then I have to include it. Or I just cut that out of the recap.
This podcast is probably about half the length of what we talked, because it was mostly me complaining about stuff.
Jared has memories. They are important memories. And he wants you all to know about them and generalize them to apply to all sorts of situations.
Fundamentally, so I'm correct when I say if you ask anyone, they're going to lie, essentially, and tell you, I love kids. That's why I want to be a teacher.
Yes.
But if you
no, they don't. They think that's why.
Sure.
Okay.
But if you drill down into it, essentially every single one is going to be based upon they had an influential teacher at some point.
A story.
And they want to be like that. Yeah. Or, in most cases, or they want to say, well, I could be the opposite of that because that person was terrible. So I want to do it, but good.
Yes.
Either one way or the other, they were influenced by the way that the teacher was in the classroom.
It left a mark on their soul and spirit for a positive or negative.
So when you're a 17-year-old or an 18-year-old or a 30-year-old or whatever, and you're thinking that you want to go to school to be a teacher.
Yeah, because more people than I am shocked the number of people that are 30 or 35, or I've met like, I don't know, 50s. And it's like, forget it. I'm going into teaching. And how many of them just totally transform their world, their living situation to accommodate their new salary.
But how do you know that's what you really want? What you should do is go talk to that teacher that once you're honest with yourself, you will realize was influential, and either observe their classroom or observe the classroom of someone they recommend.
Yes. Or if you're older, reach out to other adults who are teachers and say, I'm looking for someone that can show me a day in the life.
As opposed to one of the like children that are teachers?
Well, no, like if you're an older adult thinking about going into education, you might reach out to like teachers that you know.
Okay. And then you can observe the classroom not as the student that created that impression or had that impression created on them, but as an adult with clear eyes.
Yes.
And then you'll determine whether or not you have a full heart or not. And then you'll know if you can't lose or not.
And the reason you want to seek out like the best example of teaching is because you'll either look at it and go like, no way. Like, if that's how I create this vision of what I think teaching is, I do not have it in me to be what I just saw that person do. Like, you don't want to observe an average teacher. You want to observe the best in the building or the best you can find, because you're either going to look at it and go, not possible, or you're going to go, I can figure out how to make that happen.
Sure.
Yeah.
And then the motivation, once you realize that you can, the question that you can ask yourself is that you really want, the thing that makes teaching actually appealing, is that it can't be micromanaged and it's entrepreneurial. But as you say, this is, I don't know if this is the title of the podcast, but something along these lines probably, is that it's entrepreneurial. If you have an entrepreneurial spirit, but you're not interested in money, you're interested in influence.
Yes.
Because that's really who gets the most out of it.
Yes.
Are people that are satisfied because of the influence they see that they create, but like working in an entrepreneurial environment, not someone who needs constant validation from their boss or really from anyone. It has to be their internal sense of measurement. There's still constant feedback, just like with customers, but it's from the students, and that you're the one that has to evaluate the feedback. No one's going to tell you what to do or think. Well, they will tell you what to do or think, but not on a day-to-day basis.
No, yeah, I mean, nothing like what you experience. I mean, essentially, your boss could listen in to almost every conversation you have throughout the day. I once made a challenge for myself to see if I could go an entire year never discussing education with my principal. Wasn't even a challenge.
Right.
Like it's just they've got too much on their plate.
Not your current one.
Not my current one. That's
one
true.
of my previous bosses.
One of my previous ones.
Current boss, if you're listening, this wasn't you.
No, in fact, he was in my classroom like this week. He is a different sort of boss, which we will get to in the podcast of how do you know a school's the right fit for you.
But this one is how do you know teaching's the right fit for you?
Yeah.
Later on, once you've committed to that, we'll narrow it down to school. But I think this really actually clarified very well why I don't want to be a teacher. But for those of you thinking about it, I hope it was helpful. Thank you, Johanna.
Thanks, Jared.
Johanna, do you get questions from listeners ever?
Yes, we do.
How do those listeners send you questions?
They send us an email.
Where does that email go?
teachertalk4teachers@gmail.com.
But wait, What kind of 4? How do I do 4?
All of the 4s. They can do a number 4, they can write the word FOR, or they can do FOUR, even though that one doesn't quite make sense.
Well, perfect. teachertalk4teachers@gmail.com.
Yes.
Thank you, Johanna.
Thank you, Jared.
Teacher Talk, the podcast for teachers who are lifers but still want to have a life.